Well, we're going to go straight to business now. Our business editor, Sean Pellegrin, is joining us. He's looking at the impact this escalation in violence is having on the markets for us, Sean.
Considering the Middle East is responsible for about a third of global oil production, let's start by looking at how oil prices have reacted as they opened this Monday around the world. Whether it's the North Sea Brent crude benchmark or the West Texas Intermediate, they are both rising quite high, as you can see, over almost 10% for the Brent crude at just over $79 a barrel, not surging as much as earlier in the session when the Brent was about 13% higher, but there was quite a significant uptick after Iran's spokesperson said that their negotiations were not on the table. The main factor here is the fact that oil and gas tanker traffic in the Strait of Hormuz connecting the Persian Gulf and Arabian Sea has effectively been halted, with orders from Iran that traffic is now forbidden and insurers increasingly unwilling to cover these crossings. So cargo is now seeking alternative and longer routes. That Strait of Hormuz sees about 20 million barrels of oil go through it every day in normal conditions. That's 20% of global oil consumption. Same goes for the world's liquefied natural gas consumption. That's why this is often described as oil and gas's global choke point. Let's look at Asian bourses now, all in the red except for the Shanghai Composite. Higher energy prices weighing on stocks, except for energy stocks, obviously. Among the biggest losers are airlines amid airspace disruption and airport closures in the Middle East. Thousands of travelers currently stranded in the region. European markets also opening the session in the red this Monday in that uncertain geopolitical context. You can see both the DAX and the CAC 40 in Paris down over 2% lower. So for more in-depth analysis of this situation, let's turn to Jorge León. He's the Senior Vice President and Head of Geopolitical Analysis at Rystad Energy. Thank you for being with us, Mr. León. Let's start with the Strait of Hormuz here. I mentioned earlier that traffic is halted. The UK Maritime Transit Office saying 3 ships have been targeted by Iran as they attempted to cross. Do we have a sense, or what is your opinion on how long this situation could continue and how high energy prices could go?
Charles, thank you for having me. That is the great question at the moment. We don't know how long this disruption is going to last for. Now, bear in mind that, as you correctly mentioned, 20% of global consumption passes through the Strait of Hormuz. And it's not just oil, it's also LNG. So the longer this disruption lasts for, I suspect the higher the oil and gas prices that we will see in the coming days and weeks. Brent up by 10%. Let's not forget that gas in Europe, TTF, has increased by more than 20%.
We're also now in the last hour or so getting reports that Saudi Aramco's refinery in Ras Tunra has been targeted by a drone attack. So this, in addition to the Strait of Hormuz, there's also a risk of seeing oil infrastructure more widely targeted and potentially destroyed. Any reaction to this? So far, it seemed that actually that kind of infrastructure had been spared before that report.
Indeed, and that is, I think, a really worrying signal. So far, we didn't see any energy infrastructure being targeted, but this is another step in the escalation of the situation. As you correctly mentioned, the refinery in Saudi Arabia has been hit. We also heard that there were some explosions near Karg Island in Iran. That's the main oil storage facility. But again, targeting energy infrastructure is another step into further escalation of the situation. So if this continues, we're likely to see more upside price pressure.
On Sunday, OPEC Plus gathered and they announced what was considered a modest hike of 206,000 barrels per day. What impact would you see this having on prices? And Iran is part of that cartel. What would have been their thinking in that meeting?
So Iran was not part of that meeting because the meeting was for OPEC plus 8, the 8 countries that have implemented voluntary cuts. So that does not include Iran. Now, 206,000 barrels per day is nothing. It's really, really marginal in the grand scheme of things. So I don't think that this is having a significant impact on the market. And there's a very important element to take into account this. OPEC Plus could announce increasing production, but if countries such as the UAE and Saudi Arabia cannot export that crude if the Strait of Hormuz is closed, then the real impact on the market is very, very limited. Again, 206,000 barrels per day is negligible in the grand scheme of things. We're thinking that disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz could reach close to 10 million barrels per day. So very, very marginal impact from OPEC+.
And what kind of alternative routes are there for these barrels that are stuck in the Persian Gulf?
There are not many. Saudi Arabia could use the East-West pipeline. Currently has a capacity of 5 million barrels per day. I think it could be used 4 million barrels per day at the moment. So out of the 15 million barrels per day that transit through the Strait of Hormuz, 4 million barrels per day can use that pipeline. And then the UAE can use the Abu Dhabi pipeline, which has a capacity of 1 million barrels per day. So all in all, around 4 or 5 million barrels per day of crude could be bypassed in the Strait of Hormuz. But again, the overall figure is 15 million barrels per day. This leaves the world with a deficit of 10 million barrels per day. That's 10% of consumption. So this really highlights the importance of the current crisis.
Jorge León, you are Senior Vice President and Head of Geopolitical Analysis at Rystad Energy. Thank you so much for sharing your expert knowledge on this topic with us on France 24.
Thanks, Charles.
Back to you, Stuart.
Charles, thanks very much, Charles Pellegrin, our business editor here on France 24.